The 3 words I would use to describe Mr. Hyken would be empathetic. He's always thinking about how people feel in a situation.
Passionate, loyal.
Supportive, very selfless. He puts everyone first and never himself. And I mean, his whole career being a teacher is a selfless career.
Determined. I mean, he doesn't do anything other than give his 100% effort.
And super excited about stuff. I used to have this habit of going out and for the 4th of July in San Clemente catching a leopard shark and making shark tacos for everybody on the beach for the 4th of July. And I tried to do that up here.
He went fishing and he caught a shark. You're not really supposed to eat sharks, but he ate the shark. He cooked the shark and he ate the shark after catching it.
And when I used to catch them on the 4th of July, I would always bill it that if the zombie apocalypse happened and we had to go back and just fish for sustenance, everybody would be eating leopard shark.
He got heavy metal poisoning and mercury poisoning.
Gave me really, really intense food poisoning.
He was on some type of machine where they tried to, I guess they cleaned his blood because he had been poisoned by eating the shark.
But if you smother it in teriyaki sauce,
half of his face wasn't moving. He was like, no, it's fine that I can't move my left side of my body.
We would need teriyaki sauce in the zombie apocalypse to really make us truly survive and maintain our sanity.
Yeah. Kevin was always how he is now. He's always very passionate about little things. I remember growing up, he loved dinosaurs so much. He could repeat any fact about anything about those.
But I've always been a very, very nerdy person. I really always enjoyed nature and animals and things from a young age. A lot of the same things I like doing now, I just did worse when I was younger because I was tiny and had small hands. In my earlier childhood, when I was very, very young, I was definitely more of a peacemaker because I have an older brother and a younger sister that don't really get along, mostly because they have very different worldviews on things.
I'm sure there's been times that I was an annoying little sister, but honestly, that's the only instance I can think of that we could consider a fight. I'm just so blessed to have him as my brother. We've gone through some stuff that's not the easiest thing for people to go to. And he's always, even if he went through the same thing and I was dealing with it worse than he would be selfless and be supportive for me.
So kind of from a young age, I felt that I had to do a lot to try to bring people with different worldviews together and try to find common ground, just because that was what was necessary for my family to coexist.
I think my first impression of him was that he was a good listener. He's really smart, and when you're in a really small teaching program with a bunch of people that are really passionate about what they're doing, it was a lot of that waiting to talk kind of attitude. And he was always actually listening to what other people were saying.
You can learn a lot from listening. It sounds pretty straightforward and simple, but you really can learn a lot about people and about scenarios. And I think we don't always do a good job of listening, but just actually being open in those environments, you can really learn a lot from people. Because I know he likes to actually help people rather than just studying about how you would help people. Kevin was always great about that in college. If he saw that something was up, he would just be he'd pull me aside and be like, let's talk about it. So yeah, just being a super comfortable guy to talk to definitely makes it easy for people to just talk to him about anything they've got going on, just something they're excited about, or even if it's not something Kevin is an expert on, and he is an expert on a lot of things, but even if it's just not something that's his area of expertise, he's happy to listen about it.
Every moment I'm with him is really funny because that's just his personality. He's a giant goofball.
On my maybe freshman year birthday party, we ordered a party sub from Subway. It was one of those 6-foot subs, and we got through maybe half of it as a group, and then Kevin and I were just we're gonna kill this thing. And we just hung out in our porch, just slowly eating the Subway sandwich. When I got to high school, I became more tired of being a peacemaker, and I had my rebellious phase.
He's just done some silly pranks and stuff.
Yeah, there was a senior prank that I was not involved in. You would have to ask Kevin about that.
When he was a senior in high school, I was a freshman, and he pranked our freshman float. Paintballed it before the game.
a buddy of mine decided that because we were seniors, we had to do senior pranks on people because that was what seniors did, and we thought the best thing to do would be to raid the freshman homecoming float because we had heard that the freshmen were trying really, really hard to make it really, really nice.
And my best friend had been working on it, and I couldn't tell her it was my brother who did it.
So my good buddy and I went to Lowe's Home Improvement and bought 4 big cans of paint. And we dressed up in like hooded sweatshirts and put like masks over our faces. And we just like walked down to school and walked over to the freshman float completely covered up.
I was like taking pictures of them before they went and did it.
The thing about kind of tragedies and disasters, they can be easy to happen because nobody's expecting them to happen. Like even if you see somebody with like their face covered up holding a can of paint, you still don't expect them to throw it all over the float because like who would do that? Why would somebody do that? So then we promptly just chucked paint all over the freshman float.
It was still okay, like they used it.
We basically ruined their float. It was actually kind of sad.
Gosh, I was a pretty well-behaved kid at the time. He had a couple other, some of our other good friends were more willing to do questionably okay things with him. But definitely played chess in the middle school library a little too rowdily. Kevin was very excited about the move en passant, which we had just taught him, and he finally got to do it legally, and he yelled it very loudly. We and our entire friend group ended up getting called into the principal's office, which I think I can blame on Kevin.
I, as a young person, was not a particularly open-minded person for the majority of my high school life, at least. I grew up in a community and in a school that was very closed. I grew up in a school where students didn't really interact with each other. Definitely did not make me a very good person. And in a lot of ways, when I went off to college, that was when I realized how little I knew, and in a lot of ways had my moment of self-discovery when I saw how small I was in the world. I think there's very few more haunting places to be in than the place where you don't have any idea what your purpose is. And kind of a feeling of purposelessness is about, I think, as deeply alienating as any feeling that you could possibly feel. And it kind of left me with a profound sense of, well, I hadn't been deceived by anyone. I'd been kind of deceiving myself this entire time in terms of what I thought I knew about the world, and in truth, I knew basically nothing.
I think college is a crazy, emotional, busy time for everyone, and we all went through things.
Later on, because we were very close, talked to him a bunch about different things he went through in college, and I know what changed in him from that.
At the height of my point of self-discovery, I was getting this like righteous anger against the man, and I realized that wasn't healthy at all because people who I previously had been associated with that I was now angry at, they're people too. There was one time that in order to better understand what the life of poverty was like, I camped out in People's Park with the homeless people there for like 3 nights. And in retrospect, it probably wasn't the safest thing to do. And I still can't believe that I would have thought that would have even helped me understand what homeless people experience, because just camping there as a college student versus actually being homeless are 2 very different things.
I know he went through some hard times, some good times, and at the end of the day, he came out on top of everything, and whatever he was feeling in those times, it made him who he is today even more.
I think the most profound thing I found out from kind of this is really what makes me, kind of thrive as a teacher, was how valuable every person really is.
He really, truly prioritizes making a relationship with every single student, and he does that better, I think, than any teacher I know.
I think, and a lot of that came from initially, when I spent so much time trying to speak with the homeless community at Berkeley. When you say somebody is invisible, you don't really get more invisible than a homeless person. But they all had amazing stories, and they were all kind of beautiful in their own way. And I think that's what I hope makes me a good teacher, is that I truly feel that way about all of the students that come into my classroom.
He really, really prioritizes the individual student. And that's so hard when you have 150 different students. That's an intense amount of energy. I think that that's really, honorable. I think it's hard to be a teacher, and you understand how important your job is.
Because education is huge, and it's going to be the future for our entire country. So I think he needs to share the gift that I think he has. I've watched him teach a few times and never seen kids so engaged.
Yeah.
He inspires a lot of different teachers to be willing to try new things. I always feel like he makes me a better teacher, and I think that he makes Mountain View a more enjoyable place to work for a lot of people.
He's loving what he does. I mean, I can't imagine him not being a teacher at this point.
There's no other job that I'm really aware of where you get to hang out with, 150 people, every day. There's never been a single student that I haven't learned something from. I hope that I teach a fair amount, but I also hope that I learn a lot from all of my students. And being able to say that every year I get to learn something new from 150 different people, that in itself is kind of a gift that keeps on giving.
He is one of those teachers that really can have this huge impact on students, not just how they see themselves, but on their learning.
Especially at Mountain View, we have a lot of students that are really overstressed. The expectations for what they need to do academically can be really, really high. Trying to manage that level of stress and try to find joy in things and find joy in classes. It's definitely just a major part of the job. Students have a lot of problems. I've had students that have deaths in the family. When I used to be at South San Francisco High School, probably the worst occasion. South San Francisco High School is a much worse off school than Mountain View. We had a student in our class that got killed in a gang shooting. And that was definitely one of those really humbling moments when you really realize that there's a lot more going on than just what's happening in your classroom, and how you get people to really confront and understand that, this is what happens in life sometimes, and it's not a reflection of you, it's just what happens.
His kind of theory on how you approach life is that you just do a really good job in the now, and then you'll be okay for whatever comes.
If there's a major story about me, the thing that I would say that I wouldn't want to be forgotten is how up and down I felt my life was at times. I think right now I feel pretty comfortable in terms of that I'm on a good path, and it definitely wasn't always that way. I always like to say that we like to think that success is like this straight line, whereas success is more of this crazy bunch of squiggles, and then maybe eventually you find a little bit of a straight point. And I think right now I'm more finally on that straight point for the first time in my life. I guess I've done a fair amount in my life. I have traveled across Europe. I've hiked up through rainforests in the Caribbean. I've kayaked through mangrove forests in Grand Cayman trying to find endangered blue iguanas. I've caught and eaten sharks and been poisoned by them as a result. I've helped explore archaeological sites and document ancient artifacts. And I think I've done the hardest thing of all, which is try to teach young people history and make them like it.